Hello, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. I'm Ben Ochart, and if this is the first time you're here and you like tips about keeping fish, be sure to hit that bell down there, and be sure to sub, and so you don't miss any new posts. And I thank you for joining in, and let's see who we have here. Let's see, Daniel Barrett. Good morning, Daniel. Let me check some of the comments here and welcome some of you to the stream. Let's see, Lawrence Skez looking for advice on geos. You know, I love geos, but I don't have experience with them, so I can't really give you anything about them that will be of any value. I'm looking into them myself right now because I think they're a beautiful fish. I would suggest that you go on YouTube. There's one video in particular that I located that goes over a lot of different geos, and I think that'll help you out. It actually talks about 20 different geos, how big they get. They can actually vary quite a bit in their size, levels of aggression, who they can be with, who they can't be with. It's a great video. Look it up on YouTube. I think you'll get a lot out of that. However, because you were the first on the stream, my friend, send me your address, and I'm going to send you some channel stickers if you want them. You can send them to send your address to ben.o.cichlid@gmail, and I'll get you out some stickers for being the early bird on today's live stream. So we have quite a bit to get into today, and so let's just start off with the trademark transition. What do you say? Thank you to Phil Griffiths. Phil Griffiths in Great Britain did that transition for me, and I've been using it ever since. He also did the logo and the icon that you see at the bottom of the page. I guess it would be somewhere on this side here. That little square there was also by him. So Phil, if you're anywhere around, or if you see this in the replay, thank you, buddy. I continue to use it, and I very much appreciate it. So we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Let's just go through some of the normal things that we do in the beginning. I want to welcome all of you, especially my incredible moderators, Candy, and of course the amazing Candy, and Kevin Green, and Denny, and GP, and these are the best moderators on YouTube, and I really appreciate them putting in the time. They volunteer. They don't. They do it for the love of the hobby, and I really appreciate them. And welcome to them. Welcome to all of you out there from faraway places. I know last week we had, let me see here, Tibiru Menzu was in Romania, and that was very cool. And we had Sergio Moreno from Sweden, Ben Rafael, let's see, in Canada, another Ben over in Canada, and a lot of other folks from all over the world. Very often we also get a lot of folks from the UK and Australia. Welcome to all of you, wherever you are, and also I hope wherever you are, as I say usually, that you're drinking out of one of these. And this is one of the channel cups. As you probably know, As you probably know, I have a channel. I have a channel now, and or not a channel, but a store. And I'll show you the link. You can go to it if you like, and you can pick up whatever you want there. And we've got some hoodies and some tees and some things like that, and that helps to support the channel and all the stuff that I get myself into. So. On that subject, I have a picture here of Wendy. Wendy, thank you so much for sending me that picture. And if anyone out there has some of the merchandise, and you send me a picture in front of your fish tank, like Wendy did with this great photo she sent me, I'll go ahead and give you a shout out on the stream. Thank you, Wendy, for that. And your tank looks awesome. Be careful with that Venusus. They do like coffee. He might attack you. Anyway, thank you so much for sending that in, Wendy. I appreciate it. And so let's take a look here at, let's see who's here. Let's see here. Andy G. Hey, Andy G. James Green. Doug M. The ever reliable Candy. Hey, Frankie. Frankie Fingers. Nittany Fins. Hey, Nittany Fins. Loaves and Fishes. Great name. Great name for this, certainly for this venue. Let's see, Zen Ginger. Hey, Zen Ginger. Sir Ben. I like that, Sir Ben. I've been knighted. Jim Salt. Let me see. I'm out of coffee. Jim, in our house, that would be a 911. And if the National Guard was out patrolling the streets, we would probably risk it to get the coffee. So, all right. So, Texas Fish Room, hello. Broken Texan, hello. Oscar Killer, good morning. Good morning, King. I'm a king. I'm a sir and a king. Oh, my goodness. I hope all of you are doing okay with this crazy time we're living in, stuck indoors. And as I mentioned last week, I really feel that we have an advantage being fish keepers. We have something that can occupy our minds and our time. And I think if you're like me, you're getting a lot of projects done, like I've been doing, and doing a little bit of research, learning about things, and things of that nature. So I'll get back to this. I'll get back to this chat in a minute, but let's take a look at what's been going on, like we do normally. And I've got 3 videos here that I put out, and one of them was I finally decided to put into video format exactly how I treat the tank. And so this was the water change tip, and some people really liked it. Some people finally got their question answered how I do that. Other folks had their own way, different way, and communicated about it, and that's okay. I mean, if what you're doing is working for you, carry on. Some folks were concerned that I'm going right from the tap to the tank. Like I said in the video, I've been doing it for years. I really have never had an issue with it. Does that mean there'll never be an issue? No. I mean, I guess the local treatment facility could put poison in the water, I guess, or something. But it's been working for me, and I simply add CChem Safe. In that video, I added CChem Safe. With my smaller tanks, my 30 and my 60, I use CChem Prime, and I add it just right to the area where I'm going to be adding the water, and then as the water comes in, it disperses and gets neutralized and safe as it moves into the aquarium. So that was a fun video. Got a good response, and it also had a lot of tips underneath it from other people on how they do it, which I thought was very interesting. Another video that I put out 2 videos on sumps. Now these videos are not necessarily designed, and I know going into it when I put out a video on a sump that I'm limiting my audience to some degree. I do them because when I was setting up a sump, I really couldn't find much. I had to sort of peel away and look at what some of the people at the the salties over at their at their pages, some of the videos from BRS, Bulk Reef Supply, places like that, and I try and cobble together what they were doing, and then started putting it together. Made some mistakes, had some fears, some apprehensions, some anxieties that were really not even necessary if I'd known what I was doing more completely. And so I decided to put out some of these sump videos for folks that are considering getting into a sump, but really don't have a place they can go where they can get some simple information. Now, that being said, my sump system is a very unique. It's very different than what you normally see out there. You'll see more like the ESOPs or some of the other traditional type sumps you see now, just sort of the tanks with the baffles in them. Mine is what they call a wet dry trickle type system, and it's become more of a rare type of system to see. I bought it on Craigslist, got a good deal on it, and it's working. It's working fine for me. Jim Salt says he used the water change tip. I used that last night, Jim. That same tip, and it just increases the volume of your water changes. One of the big advantages, of course, of a sump is that you have so much water volume added to the volume of the tank. In my case, I have about 30 gallons or more of additional water volume to help dilute the things that you want diluted in the tank. And so, but very often some folks would be siphoning water from the sump to get additional water volume. And of course, the tip in that video was go ahead and run the tank down with siphoning, and then just start your pump, and then move water from the sump to the tank and keep siphoning. It just makes it very easy for me. And some people said, well, why don't you just remove more water from the tank? Wouldn't that be the same thing? And possibly, but I like it. I like the way it allowed me to kind of keep the water level at a certain, if I get below, let's say, let me see if you can see this from one angle. If I get below here, I have to, if I get below that level there, I have to turn off the Sun 704B canister filter that I have running on the aquarium as well. It's doing mechanical filtration. It's full of just sponges. So I don't want my water level to get too low, because the Sun will start sucking in air, and I'll have to reprime it, push that big button on the top, which, if those of you that are familiar with Sun know, that can be a bit of a pain in the butt. So I want to keep my water level at a certain level so that Sun runs throughout the water change process. Just something I do. The water splashing, I think, is adding oxygen, and it's picking up some of the detritus that is getting kicked up when I'm doing my vacuuming. So I think it's a good way to go. And so we had the water change tip, and we had the don't fear the flood. Again, don't fear the flood was just me going through the different scenarios that could exist, that could occur in a sump, a blocked overflow, a pump failure, and just demonstrating how those things are not going to flood your house, and if you have it dialed in correctly. And so again, I had some comments under that video that were exactly what I was looking for. People telling me that they now felt more confident and more comfortable in pursuing a sump. And so that's what I was looking for. People doing that and going, watching that video and saying, you know what, that really doesn't seem that scary to me. I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. And that was the product I was going for, which was what I was hoping to find when I set up the sump, and I couldn't. Everywhere I went, I saw beautiful setups. I saw complicated plumbing that was color coded, and what they call Herbie overflow boxes. I saw all this stuff, and I just got overwhelmed, really. And so I threw it together as best I could, threw a video up on video, got crucified by all the experts, and then I started my real learning process. So, at any rate, when you're on YouTube, you have to be willing to do that. So that's what's been going on, and let's talk a little bit about what's coming up before we get into the main topic. And what's coming up is actually going to tie into today's topic. I'm going to be putting out a video, and it's still coming together in my head on how I'm going to do it. But and this ties into today's topic in that some of the most fun I have, apart from introducing and helping fish keepers and introducing people to fish keeping, and apart from watching the fish color up and put on size and all that, one of the things I really enjoy about this hobby is learning. And and I came across some ideas, and these ideas are not new. These are old ideas. But from the time these ideas were popular, and now a tremendous amount of marketing has occurred, and the fish keeping community has become a pretty big community. Certainly not as big as dogs and cats when it comes to the billions that are spent every year, but there's a lot of money flying around, and some companies realized that, and they started putting out products. And in the marketing of these products, I believe we may have lost some basics. We may have lost some basics that I started to reacquaint myself with a few days ago, and I'm not even sure if what you see here. I'm not even sure if this is going to be the thumbnail for the video. I'm not sure yet. I might do another thumbnail. But what I came across and what I thought was so interesting, and I'll show it to you here. I came across this article in a place called Aqua World, and it's written by a gentleman named Griffiths, Tony Griffiths. Maybe some of you are familiar with Tony. I think he's up in the Sacramento area, and if you know Tony, tell him I gave him a shout out on today's live stream. And what he did is he wrote an article, and he has this ebook. There's an ebook that you can go ahead and download, or just bookmark the page. You can access it whenever you want. But this ebook is full of very interesting information. Some you'll agree with, some you might not agree with. But I found it fascinating, and there was a section in it on filtration, and you can see here the table of contents. He's got he's very familiar with saltwater, but this particular ebook is sort of taking a lot of the saltwater ideas and bringing them over to freshwater, which is I think very, very good. I think the salties are way ahead of us in understanding things like water chemistry and filtration, things of this nature. So what he's done is he put together this ebook, and you can access it. It's free, and you can see their freshwater nitrogen cycle, water testing, adjusting water chemistry, top-offs, water changes, just a whole variety of subjects. And the chapter on filtration I found to be very, very interesting. And I'll just give you one excerpt from it. Let me pull it up here. This is just one section of it. When cleaning biological media, significant amounts of beneficial bacteria can be lost. Many hobbyists suggest using aquarium water to clean biological media, but even with aquarium water, beneficial bacteria can be lost. For most aquarium systems, it is best if the biological filtration occurs in the aquarium and not the filter. Okay, let that roll around your head a little bit. In the aquarium, not the filter. Now, this is pretty interesting what he's saying here, and the reason that thumbnail that you see, that thumbnail that I have set up here initially was because of this. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Whenever you service your canisters, whenever you service your HOBs, your hang-on backs, whenever you service, even if you tear apart a sump, you're going to be messing up your beneficial bacteria. You're going to be messing with it. You're going to have a drop. There's no way around it. Every time you deep vacuum, you really get that vacuum tube down there in the gravel, you're messing with the beneficial bacteria. Now, a lot of people have contacted me and said, look, right after a water change, my nitrates spike again. Other people have contacted me and say right after a water change I had a die-off, and yet I did everything I always do. Well, according to the information in this and you folks can pull up the ebook or you can watch my video tomorrow. Essentially, every time you service, every time you deep vacuum, every time you pull media out and dip it in tank water, you're creating a beneficial bacteria disruption and starting a cycling. Now that cycling can be very quick, but it could be just enough ammonia released so that in 2 or 3 days you have a few fish that have died, or a day or so some fish die, and you don't know why. Because by the time those fish die and you go in and do your water test, it's caught up. And then you send me a message saying, I don't get it, my tests are good, but my fish died after the water change. You see what I'm saying? It's very, and so what he's talking about here is you create a 3-inch sand substrate. You create a sand bed of about 3 inches. You don't worry about sulfur or gas buildups. He said the gas buildups, he says, are myths. They're not going to harm your fish. They're harmless. You leave the sand alone, and you only gently vacuum from a ½ inch, an inch up to remove any waste on the surface of the sand, but you leave the sand alone. And the sand is your beneficial bacteria. The sand is your aerobic and your anaerobic. So now you have nitrate reduction, right? So you have, and in that nitrate reduction, which I believe turns it back to nitrite, and then there's a sulfur process, the gas off, and I'm not sure the exact chemistry of it, but in the deeper parts of that sand bed, you're going to have anaerobic bacteria that is going to convert nitrate into a form where it can gas off, and you're going to leave it alone. You're not going to touch it. You're not going to disturb it, and your filters are going to be only for water particle removal. So your filters will be just sponges, only sponges, floss, pinky floss, untreated crib batting, right, that you can pick up at a fabric store. Removal of particles, right, from the water will be the purpose of the filters, but your bio will be in the substrate, in 3 inches of sand. Now, if you're running bare bottom, I guess you could have a sump. You could have a sump with 3 inches of sand and have the water running through your sump and have a bare bottom and still have the same effect, I guess. But this is really interesting to me. I don't know if it's interesting to you. It fascinates me because it throws the media makers. They'll hate this, absolutely hate it, because what this guy is doing is he's going out and he's buying blasting sand and play, like play sand, putting 3 inches in, having it get established, put some sponge filters that he cleans out and doesn't care about the bio in them because he's not using that for bio. And his tanks are healthy and maintain very low nitrates, like 10 or less nitrate levels, and they're rock solid stable. There's no spiking because he's not touching the bio. The beneficial bacteria is never messed with. What do you think? Do you think it would work? I'm thinking of, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna get some sand, and I'll probably start with a 30 and put about 3 inches in there of sand. Leave the crushed coral on top for the buffering, and then slowly over time remove the crushed coral, and the hang-on back filter on that tank is just sponges anyway. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do an experiment. I'm gonna see, and what that means is the elimination of my marine pure, of my biohome, of my rings, of my sponge-filled bioballs, of my the gradual elimination of that, and letting the sand actually be the home that supports the entire system, and have that home be rock solid stable because I'm never going to mess with it. I think that's a fascinating concept. If you have something like that, or if you have a similar setup, or if you have any comments or experience with that kind of a setup, go ahead and comment below because I'd love to hear it. I'll talk some more about this in tomorrow's video, maybe give you some more excerpts. Certainly you go to the webpage, go to the, go to that Aqua World webpage, and you can see it. You can see the link right there, aquaworldaquarium.com/ebooks/Tony Griffiths with 2 T's. You can see the link there, and you can download that ebook. You can read it online. You can bookmark it. I think it's very cool. And at any rate, this could be actually creating some changes in how I keep aquariums, and I will be your guinea pig. I'll let you know how that goes. Of course, taking a look at the fish, I'm always a little reluctant to change anything when the fish are doing well, and it looks like the fish are off camera. Well, there comes a Livingstone. So I'm a little reluctant to do anything that's going to make any major change, that's going to change a working system. But at the same time, what if I'm creating nitrate spikes? What if I'm creating mini cycling and the release of ammonia? What kind of stress am I putting onto my fish on a regular basis? And if that was eliminated, what impact would that have on my fish? I mean, what would that actually move these fish into an even better, better condition, into a better state? So I definitely want to hear what you have to say about it. And if you know Tony Griffiths up in the Sacramento area, and reach out to him and tell him that he was discussed in a live stream. If he wants to chime in, maybe I can have him on one of these live streams and have him say a few comments. But I found what he had to say very, very interesting. So let's take a look at some of your comments, and while we look at the fish in the tank there, and with the fish cam. By the way, the picture of that eye biter, I'm thinking of making a T-shirt with that picture, and the caption would be, "You have lovely eyes." And for those of you familiar with eye biters, you would get the dark humor in that T-shirt. So by the way, last week we did miss a super chat. I forgot to give a shout out to, if I can pronounce that, Tiberiu Minzu, a person from Romania, and he gave us a super chat last week. For those of you not familiar, super chats are where you throw a little dough at the channel and help support the channel. And some of you have been calling it the 8-foot tank fund, and fund the 8-foot tank. And I think my next purchase is actually going to be a camera. I'm using, as you can see here over my shoulder here. That's a 920. It's a Logitech. It's a Logitech cam that is, it's high definition. It's good, but it doesn't have the extreme crispness that you would get in a camera, a mirrorless camera that allows you to that has streaming capabilities. So I think that's going to be my next investment. So I'm not going to lie to you. If you super chat, that's probably going to go towards the camera. So to tell you the truth. So at any rate, let's see here. We had last week we had a few comments, some interesting comments that jumped out at me. I'm going to go ahead and read some of them, and then we'll get into the comments under in today's stream. But last week, Veronica White was asking, how do you upgrade tanks without messing up your nitrogen cycle? I'm upgrading my 10-gallon to a 20. And I think you hear my beagles in the background. I didn't give the normal warning I give in the beginning of all my live streams. At any point, you could hear beagles barking. And also, if we have a lost signal, I will come right back on again. That happens sometimes with these Wi-Fi signals. At any rate, yeah, Veronica, I guess the best advice I could give you is to just take as much, take the media, out, and just transfer the filter over, and maybe bring over some of that water. Not that any beneficial bacteria is in that water column. I understand a very small amount of beneficial bacteria and a special kind of beneficial bacteria is in the water column, but it's not gonna. You can't just take water from an established tank and put it in another tank, and that tank is ready to go. Those fish will die. It'll start cycling. You'll have an ammonia spike. So yeah, bring over everything you can from the old tank, put it in the new tank, and maybe throw a little bacteria in there, and something like a Chem Stability, Fritz Turbo, just to safeguard. Certainly use Prime, and you should be good to go. I mean, it should be okay, unless you're adding a bunch of fish all at once, and then what will probably happen is you might outrun the beneficial bacteria. Now, keep in mind, like I just talked about earlier, when you make that move, you are going to kill off a lot of beneficial bacteria. It just that happens. I mean, you're going to have a good starting point, a good foundation to start with, but you're going to kill off beneficial bacteria. This is why adding a little bit of Turbo, Fritz Turbo, a little bit of Chem Stability, or whatever product you trust, and maybe even if you have a friend who has an established tank and it's healthy, grab a little bit of their media and put it in there. So anyway, that's probably the best way to do it. Weestrum, company guy, Weestrum CO. I don't know if that company or Colorado. So Weestrum, you said I need stickers. So did I send you stickers? If I didn't send you stickers, you know my email. Send me your address. I'll send you some stickers. Michael Levesky. Hey Ben, have you only kept Africans or have you thought about keeping discus? Actually, Michael, discus were what I was keeping before I got into African cichlids. And I reached a point where I really couldn't keep I couldn't keep the discus in the size of tank I had, and I had to upgrade. And since I was going to upgrade anyway, I decided, you know what, this might be a good time to switch what I'm keeping, and I switched to African cichlids. I love discus. I think they're beautiful, and at some point I may actually get back into them. So, just so you know. And let's see, some people call him the king of freshwater fish. Jerry Martin, I had a massive ache problem that hit my severums and it cost me a red spot. It led to fin rot. Looks like I saved 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, those ick spreads incredibly quick. The only thing that's worked for me very, very fast with ick is to raise the temperature. I mean, you raise it gradually into the low to mid 80s. And I've also used a product by Corden called Ick Attack. It's a gentle, natural product. That with a temperature increase, and it wipes it out very, very quickly. And I'm sorry you lost that fish, Jerry. And I'm glad you made it to the live stream last week. I know that you were gone for a little while. Jeffrey Lee, what are your thoughts on 75-gallon HAP tanks? I live in an apartment, can't afford to upgrade, but love the species. Jeffrey, I think in a 75, I think I think you could do it. I wouldn't put a tremendous amount of decor because that would cut into the amount of swim space. I would put some Z-Rock in there. I'd put a Autopharynx tetrastigma. I'd put maybe Tangerine Tiger and a Taiwan Reef, fish like that don't get enormous, but the Tangerine Tigers can get a little big, but probably about as big as that Autopharynx tetrastigma. That's one of my favorite all-time fish. I had one for many years. You can see him in my past videos, and he lived a very long life, and I'll probably end up getting another one at some point. And but I think you could. I think you could do it. You know, and just get medium. Don't get Venusis. Don't get Fuscos. Don't get Trouts. Don't get Gars. Malawi Gars. Don't get fish like that. Even your Malawi Hawks. Don't get. I mean, they grow slow, but they get massive. I mean that. That trout that just swam by is probably 10 inches or more, and will probably grow another 50%. It could have 15 inches maybe or more. That Venusis is 10 inches, and he's still growing. So anyway, there you have it. Jerry Martin again, what are you using to record your video for your channel? I am starting a channel, different topics, and was looking for some input from your experience. Also, what do you use to edit? Jerry, I'm using a software product called, it's put out by a company called Magic Vegas. That's what I use on my computer, on my laptop. And I also use a product called Viva Video on my phone. Viva is very easy, and it's like, I don't know, just a few bucks a year, and you can get it free, but it'll show the watermark, it'll show Viva, or you can pay just a little bit of money, and you get a tremendous amount of features. Editing is simple. You can put a lot of graphics in, you can put video on video. It's actually the easiest software I work with is the cell phone software Viva. At any rate, and for broadcasting, like right now, I'm using OBS, the Open Broadcast Software Studio platform, OBS. It takes a little while to learn it, but you can go on to, there are a lot of tutorials on the web on how to use it. This right now, what you're seeing now, is an OBS broadcast. So let's see here. Give the fish a break there. And Robert Johnson, I found buying them. Okay, so Robert was commenting on when to acquire fish or how people raise their fish. And it looks like Robert Johnson said, I found that buying them at the age they start to color is cheaper between cost of food, heating, tank cost, possibly having a female. I like buying them young but old enough to show color. You know, Robert, I think that's really a good idea. I've had, believe it or not, I think I picked up, you think when you buy 3, you'd get at least 1 male. You'd think so. But I have 3 fish that I purchased, and I've had them for about a year now, over a year. And the Bucochromis notitania, one of my favorite fish. And it looks like I might have 3 females. So you think about a year of feeding, and you're right, you know, the cost of keeping them, feeding them. Whereas if I had just bought a young male that was just showing color at that time, I would have had a year of enjoying this male blossoming, and it might have been worth the extra 30, 40 bucks that I would have paid. So I hear you. I hear you. If you folks have comments on that, definitely share them below. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Matt Conrad, I quite enjoy the grow up process. It's nice to see the colors right away, but I enjoy the waiting game and getting to be surprised by the outcome. Well, there you go. So there's another viewpoint that I also can share. When you see a fish all of a sudden that you were never really sure was a male or female, all of a sudden blow up with color. It's like a Christmas morning. It's like your birthday. So definitely, for sure. So I can see it both ways, but I kind of like that idea of having a proven male and at least some signs, and you can see it usually along the gills and the face, the lips, sometimes in the pointed anal fin, the pointed dorsal. There are certain tip-offs that'll tell you that it's a male. And when they're still young, when you can still get a good deal on them, you know, 4 inches to 6 inches. And now, that being said, I mean, that trout, the trout that's behind me and that eye biter, those were both picked up as mature males. I didn't want to mess around, and because I'd waited so long and been frustrated before, so I broke down. Inventory King, Paul the Inventory King. Ben, have you tried to vent the fish? Venting is where you actually turn the fish over and take a look and see if it's a male or female. And if it's, I think if it's too round, you know, it's a female and a round and a straight. It's I don't know, I might have it backwards. I don't know. But I've tried venting, and I knew, and I felt like I knew what I was doing, and I was wrong. So I haven't vented. Maybe the fish was too young. But if you are going to vent, I suggest you use something that enlarges the bottom of the fish, and that you do it under good lighting. And you know, on our phones, you know, we have the flash function, and we have the flashlight function, and we have the photo enlarging function. So using your phone to vent and looking at your phone, or even recording as you hold the fish under and then putting the fish back in so he's not, you know, so he or she is not stressed, and then looking at the recording very closely might be the best way to vent. But I've tried it, Paul, and can't say I was successful. That was just one attempt. I mean, as a complete novice, one attempt. I mean, so don't be too hard on me. So Tom Anding, is this the Tom in Malibu? Tom, this just received 6 porate filter foams from Swiss Tropicals for a new sump I'm building. 2 3-inch thick, 10 ppi, and 3 4-inch thick, 20 ppi. You know, getting back to what I talked about earlier on today's topic, and also I know that Half Man, Half Cichlid is in the middle of creating a sump like this. Yeah, you can just put stacked sponges, and you have the water returning on one side of the sponges, the water travels through the sponges, and then the pump on the other side, and voila, instant sump. And very simple. You don't need a lot of baffles. You don't need a lot of complicated water, you know, travel routes. You know, it's just simple. 3 sponges. They will be a home for beneficial bacteria. But again, if you're doing it with a 3-inch sand bed, you're not going to need, those sponges can be strictly mechanical and not even really needed. And the sump, the benefit of the sump will be the added water volume and a place where you can hide your heaters, and also be able to, let's say, put a fish for a timeout, or you know, something like that. So I'd like to see that. Tom, when you finish that project, send me a video. Doug Shotwell, what's your favorite current fish? Doug, that's a cruel question. You know, I like all the fish. And if I had to pick, if I had to get rid, if someone said, Ben, you've got to get rid of half your stock, it would be very difficult for me to pick. So I can't tell you what my favorites or what my least favorites are right now. I would say that if we go back to the fish cam, that trout that you see swimming across the screen there, that I picked up from the Wonder of Cichlids, I think that fish is just an amazing specimen, and would certainly be in my top 2 or 3. I think the eye biter would probably be top 2 or 3. The Maduka white lips in the 100. That's a very special fish. The fish I call Photoshop, my red cap. I think that's a very special fish. So you know, I don't think I could choose. I don't think I could pick without experiencing a high degree of anxiety. So, so no favorite. They're kind of all my favorite right now. And you know, ask me in a year. I mean, I'm going to be getting off into some other projects. I really would like to have some geos. I might get back into discus. I want to have a planted tank that'll probably be full of shrimp and neons and rasboras and things. And So, ask me in 6 months. It'll change, no doubt. So let's take a look here at what some of you folks have been talking about. And sometimes the conversations in the chat can be pretty interesting. And let's go back a little bit here. I have two places where I look at the chat, on my monitor, but also on a different computer. Let's see here. To start new, would you need to cycle from Nittany Fins? Well, it depends how you start new. If you start with material from a prior tank, you wouldn't necessarily. But again, there would be, like I talked about, there would be maybe some mini cycles. And this is the problem that I'm trying to address here. I'm trying to address the numerous times that I keep hearing from people that I just cleaned my tank, or I just did a water change and I had a die-off. We may be, because we're destabilizing our beneficial bacteria, and even by using tank water, and even by being, rotating a water change versus a vacuuming versus a, servicing on a filter, we might be disrupting enough of the beneficial bacteria to create a small cycle, which is creating some ammonia that is stressing fish, and those fish that are already perhaps a little bit weak due to stress, or for whatever reason, are dropping dead. And then when we test the water, because the bacteria is caught up, we're getting this reading that seems okay. And so people are scratching their head and just saying, I don't get it. Why are my fish dying after a water change? All my readings are okay. I don't understand. And by creating a stable, never changing substrate or sand bed that is the home, the primary home of beneficial bacteria, it's going to grow everywhere. It's going to grow on the sponges in your filter. But if you're pulling those out and cleaning them every few weeks or so, chances are it's going to mostly grow in that substrate. I mean, I'd imagine. But at any rate, Ryan, time to brew a pot of coffee, do some water testing and water changes for the tanks. Thanks for the live chat. Great background chat while doing my chores. I get that message from a lot of people that they use this live stream as the background while they're doing their maintenance. And hey, I like it. Always be learning. How many of you are using this time period to educate yourself in something? I hear from people that are learning languages. I hear people that are, I dove into OBS and tried to learn the platform. I'm trying to find out more about the intricacies of streaming. I'm trying to find out more about about editing of video. I'm watching a lot of educational videos. How many of you are actually using this time period to gain some knowledge? I think it's kind of cool that way. So let's see, Ben, if you want to successfully raise shrimp like me, you cannot add any fish. I guess, what does that mean? The shrimp, the fish will just eat the shrimp? So it has. I've seen some shrimp in tanks with fish, but I don't know if I'd be raising them or not. I'm not sure if I'd be in the process of raising them, like breeding them, or. But I guess they breed anyway. I mean, I have some bamboo shrimp in the sump, and they've bred. They've had babies. I've seen little teeny shrimp running around. So let's see here. And a GP, one of the moderators, if you have a die-off after a water change, you probably don't have enough biomedia if it's a new tank, it could be that the biobacteria hasn't propagated yet. Well, yeah, and that's the point of what I've been talking about. What if you have this stable bed of beneficial bacteria that doesn't get messed with, and that is giving you an aerobic and an anaerobic level to help really control and stabilize nitrates. I mean, this could be a pretty interesting. Let's see here. Kristen, yes, using this to learn so many things. There you go. I mean, if we're gonna be home anyway, home anyway, why? And by the way, James, I see that, and that pleases me to no end to hear you say that. And so that's really part of the point here. Daniel Barrett needs to sell off a fish because it's too aggressive. There are some videos. I think Josh Cunningham Cichlids, I believe he has some videos on how to package and ship. I think he made a few videos on that. I necessarily wouldn't know. Some people here on the stream might know on that. And let's see here. Some folks are talking about too much algae. James talking about phosphates. Yes, James, phosphates and too much light definitely can create algae. I like algae. I think it, again, it removes nitrates. It adds oxygen. The fish love it. They peck at it. Somebody sent me this morning a video of their tank, and the sidewalls in the back were almost entirely green algae. And I thought it looked great. I thought it was very natural looking, more natural than an artificial 3D background like the one I have on the tank behind me. So, different viewpoints about algae. Let's see here. Ron Foss, I've learned so much from you, Corey, John, and others on FishTube while working on tanks. But I find myself trying things I never would have tried years ago. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's all part of the learning process. Just remember that people on YouTube, including me, we can sometimes get things a little off, be a little wrong sometimes. So go to different sources, look at blogs. I've made mistakes off of YouTube advice, and I've probably given advice that, if followed immediately without doing other steps, might have caused trouble. So, take everything you hear from anybody with a grain of salt. Do more research, and certainly keep in mind that if something is working, don't necessarily be in too much of a hurry to change. If your fish look healthy, if they're growing, if they're showing good color, if they're active, if they're eating, if you like your water quality, if you're testing out and your tests are good, maybe go a little slow with the changes. My peeps, Ben, I'm not learning anything. I already know it all. I have a coffee cup that was, it used to belong to my son-in-law, and who has moved with my daughter to Florida. And the coffee cup says, I don't need Google, I think it's my daughter's. I don't need Google, my husband knows everything, or something like that. I thought it was kind of funny. But the one thing I'll tell you is the second you start, and this is my opinion, and you tell me what you think. The second you start getting real stupid is when you think you know everything, because at that moment you stop learning. So I'm always learning, and I'm not even so proud to say that I could have set these tanks up better. Looking at what I've come across over the years, I think that having set up these tanks, if I could do it again, and I'd probably go with the 2 to 3 inches of sand and use that sponge system. It would have saved me a lot of money and given me a very stable very stable tank based on what I'm reading. So, I'll admit it. There may be a better way. I mean, the reason I put the substrate that you see in these tanks, the reason this substrate is here, this coral, this crushed coral, was for buffering, and Caribbean Sea was selling it as African cichlid substrate, and so me, the young African cichlid, trusting African cichlid keeper, not having done a tremendous amount of research, trusting the wisdom of a company like Caribbean Sea, goes ahead and buys 100 pounds of this crushed coral, and it's done its job. My pH stays nice and stable, nice and high. I have good KH, GH. I have good minerals in my water, and I also get good minerals out of the faucet. Southern California has very hard water, a lot of calcium, a lot of magnesium. Looking back on hindsight, yeah, maybe an aragonite sand, which I used to have in my 135, maybe that would have been the ideal, a nice deep aragonite bed. And anyway, so don't ever get into a position where you. It's okay to be expert, to feel like you're an expert. I think that what's the benchmark in that book, Outliers? I think the benchmark is 10,000 hours of doing something. Seems to be what puts a person into an expert category. So there are experts out there, but at the same time, don't move into the category of thinking that you know it all, because that's right before something really bad happens. Okay, so let's see here. And it looks like, what is that, Teacher Tommy? It looks like I'm making Teacher Tommy want African cichlids. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. I think I've infected a lot of people with the African cichlid bug over the years, and I make no apologies. I'm proud of it, and I hope it keeps happening. So let's see here. Raymond says my tank basically sits around almost, at the dark or in the dark most of the time. I think you're talking about algae. I have my lights on a timer. My lights come on at about 7 a.m. They go off at 10, and they come back on at around 6 p.m. and they're on until they go off about 10. So I'm running my lights about 6-7 hours a day, and algae isn't a real big problem. I get more algae from the windows, and I mentioned before they recently trimmed all the trees in the property, and so I'm getting a lot more sunlight in. That's more of a problem for me than lights. And it looks like William has, let me see, he's talking about his MTS, multiple tank syndrome disease. If I had more room and more money, I think I've taken my wife to the limit on what I can have here on tanks. Let's see here. Okay. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now before we do the final wrap up. And before I wrap up, I want to remind you folks, let me see here. Hey, Posewi, yo-yo loaches love to eat snails. Yeah, that's one of the ways that people get rid of their snails. They go out and buy a yo-yo or a clown loach. Clown loaches eat snails too. So if you have a snail problem, go out and get yourself one of those loaches, and you'll be all taken care of. James, my wife feeds my addiction. You know, I think that my wife likes that I do this. It certainly gives her some time to do the kind of things that she wants to do without me necessarily in her hair. And so I think it's good. I think it's a good thing. So
At any rate, if those of you that know me and follow my channel know that my last two tanks, I had to do something special. I had to do some painting. I had to do some big projects around the house. And so if you're looking to add another tank and your spouse is reluctant, ask them. This worked for me. Get into a negotiation. Find out from them what they would like to see happen in the house. And in my case, I went out and bought a bunch of paint, some tarps, and the rest is history. That's why I have this pretty color in the wall behind me here. All right. Let's see here. Any more comments that jump out here? If I've missed your comment, I might pick it up in next week's live stream. You know I do that. I go back and I scour. And if you did a super chat and I missed it, I apologize and I thank you, and I will give you a shout out in next week's live stream because I'm so intent on what I'm talking about. Sometimes they come through there and I miss them. But let's see here. And James, plants don't do well in a sand substrate. Now, you know, you're right on that. And what I would probably do if I wanted to have plants and a sand substrate, I would probably buy the Anubius, and the thick part of the Anubius, rhizome, I think it's called a rhizome, the thick part of Anubius plant. You can take that and super glue it to decor, to rocks, and to decor, and it will send out the thread roots and sort of wrap around that decor, and it'll thrive. So I would probably, with a sand substrate, I would probably use a Anubius that's been glued, and super, just your basic, simple, straightforward, old school super glue. Once it dries, is safe, is aquarium safe. And I actually did a project with plants and super glue. Didn't bother the fish at all, but when the fish put on size, they ate the Anubius. And so, but at any rate, that's probably what I would do with a sand substrate. So at any rate, it looks like we're on the hour. I would like to thank all of you for being on this, and don't forget to visit the YouTube channel. Be sure to answer all the questions so that the moderators will let you in. Otherwise, they just they decline. They don't let you in. So please answer all the questions. Follow on Instagram at ben.o.cichlid if you want some behind the scenes, other photos I post. And if you haven't already, hit that sub button, hit that bell, and let's get those subs. Let's get those subs up, and let's see if we can get up over 23,000. 25,000. Let's get up there, and that's always fun. That tells me you like the content and you want to get notifications by hitting that bell. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to those who super chatted. Thank you to those of you who commented, and thank you to my wonderful moderators. I'm assuming you're all here today. I'm not sure. I didn't check. Certainly Candy, GP, Denny, Kevin. You guys are the best. And that's it for me. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week, and maybe I'll see you in my video tomorrow. Bye-bye. What are you still doing here? Go, you've got things to do. Go, you shouldn't still be here.